Good morning. We're on day 90. We're looking at Judges 3, 4, and 5 today. When God began using judges to not only judge Israel internally, but take care of external threats. The Israelites lived among the Canaanites, the Hittites, Amorites, the Sidonians, the Philistines. They were influenced by all of these people. They let their children intermarry. They began to serve these false gods. And just as God had promised, he began to bring cursing on them as they would not follow him. And after a season, there was a king, the king of Mesopotamia, rose up 8 years and oppressed them. And the children of Israel, it said, they cried unto the Lord, and the Lord raised up a deliverer whose name was Othniel. He was the nephew of Caleb, as in Caleb and Joshua. And he judged Israel for 40 years. He overcame the king of Mesopotamia, and said the land had rest for 40 years. During that time, the idea is the people of Israel served the Lord. But then, after Othniel died, it says the children of Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord, and God allowed Eglon, the king of Moab, to come up, and then he oppressed Israel for 18 years. And finally, the children of Israel saw the error of their ways again, so they cried to the Lord. The Lord raised up a deliverer, this time in Ehud, who was a Benjamite. He was left-handed. And he goes to deliver tribute or some present to this Eglon, king of Moab. And he delivers that, and then he says, oh, I have something else for you. And so Eglon, thinking he was going to get some special tribute, some special tax, or some special gift, he sent everybody out. And Ehud comes near to Eglon, who was very fat, very big, and he takes his left hand, he whips it underneath his garment, pulls out a long, a short sword, really, a long dagger, a short sword, and he stabs Eglon, king of Moab, with that. And it says that because he was so fat, the sword was absorbed into him. It says dirt came out. His bowel apparently was perforated. And Ehud stuffs this wicked king who was dying, stuffs him in his bathroom, if you will. And he goes on the way out. He says, "Hey, he's taking a nap. He's resting." And the servants, by the time that they figured out that they were being lied to and found this dead king of Moab, Ehud had gotten away. And he also judged Israel for a season, and actually it says the land had rest for 80 years, for 80 years. And sometime during that time also God raised up Shamgar, who delivered 600 Philistines into his hand with an ox goad, basically a sharp stick, a sharp prod. And he also was a judge during this time. And then it goes on in chapters 4 and 5 to detail the judge that was a female judge, Deborah. And Deborah was a prophetess in the land. She was an important spiritual leader in the land. And at that time, after that time, Jabin, the king of Canaan, began to oppress for 20 years the people of Israel. And Deborah, prophetess, who was married at the time, she began to judge Israel. And a man, Barak, was called to fight against Sisera, the captain of Jabin's army. And these guys weren't a small army. They had chariots. They had a lot of people. And Barak was afraid. He acted in fear. He didn't act in faith. He says, I'll go out to war, Deborah. He says, but you have to go with me. He says, if you'll go with me, then I'll go. But if you won't go with me, then I'm not going to go. She said, I'm going to go because of this, God's going to deliver, instead of you receiving the glory and you receiving and being able to help judge Israel, God's going to deliver this evil general into the hand of a woman. Nobody knew what that meant at the time, but they went out to battle, and the battle turned against Sisera. Barak and his men were chasing him, and this evil general, Sisera, was, I like the way the King James says it, he was discomforted. He was afraid for his life, and he was fleeing. He was tired, and he was thirsty. And at one point, he runs into a small settlement where there was a man named Heber who had a settlement, and his wife Jael said, hey, come on in here, don't be afraid. It says she covered him with a mantle. She got him a place where he could lay down and rest, and he's trying to go to sleep. He asks, can I have a drink of water? So she gave him not only water, but she gave him milk. So he was comforted in that. But then after he went to sleep, he was in a deep sleep. She took a tent peg and a mallet, and she nailed his head literally to the ground and drove this nail through his temples. And when Barak, the general, who was a man led at first by fear instead of by faith, came along, sure enough, God had delivered this general into the hand of a woman, into the hand of Jael. And then chapter 5 is the Song of Deborah and Barak. And please don't take these songs in Scripture as something that would be akin to what our short 3 verses with choruses songs kind of would be. Hebrew poetry is different, and you can say, well, I don't see how this would be a song, but it was. And really the focus of the song here is that God has brought a victory for his people. And this is important that we understand that God has a plan for his people. God has victory for his people. If in faith we will respond to him, and if we will continue responding to him instead of turning away unto whatever the idols of the day are, whatever the influences of the world are, I just want to encourage you this morning, serve the Lord, trust the Lord, and there's victory as we walk with him. The Lord bless you.